everybody, it's me, Diva, again, back with another video. If I sound a little bit more dead, monotone, disgusting, repulsive today, it's because I am getting over a cold. If you saw my community post, you probably saw that I said that I got really sick. I caught my boyfriend's cold, and now I'm super nasally and disgusting, and I had a 8-hour shift at work today that absolutely destroyed me. So I'm so excited to be recording this video today. I'm actually really excited to be recording today's video because one, it's been a while. I haven't recorded in so long, and two, I have so many video ideas that I want to start pushing out, but school just started up. School is literally kicking me in the butt. I'm working too at the same time, so I'm literally doing school work and then YouTube, and it's a lot, but you know what, I'll handle it, I'll manage, and I'll survive. Now, as you guys know, I mainly do book videos. From my 3 videos that I have up, they're all surrounding books, which is mainly the main thing that I'm gonna be doing. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different, and this is something that I asked if you guys wanted to see, and everybody was kind of like, yeah, so I was like, okay. And that is gonna be a video about music, which is a little bit different, but it's still kind of within a similar genre of what we've been talking about with disturbing content and all of that kind of stuff. Today we're gonna be talking about an album that I love so much and I hold dear to my heart, and that is Preacher's Daughter by Ethel Cain. Now, if you guys don't know who Ethel Cain is, one, you're missing out. You're literally not living yet.
Oh hey, it's me, Gollum. I've been trying to get my ring back from those stupid filthy hobbitses, but I'm dummy thick and the sound of my ass cheeks clapping keeps alerting the guards.
But two, she is a singer-songwriter from Florida, and she makes music that is it's really God's gift to this world. Wow, it moves you. It has such an amazing storyline behind it. Now, Ethel Cain actually grew up in a Southern Baptist family. I believe her father was a deacon, if I'm not wrong. Yes. And that's pretty much what inspires the music that she makes. Even though she doesn't reject her Christianity or her views in religion, but it is the main point in most of her songs. It's the main theme that we're going to be seeing today. And it's something that I really, really love because myself, I did grow up Catholic, and Catholicism has always been a part of my life. I went to a Catholic elementary school. I went to a Catholic high school. It's just always been a part of my life, whether I wanted it to be or not. So this is something that I very much relate to in terms of having your religion always be there. But aside from that, her debut album, Preacher's Daughter, is an album that I will never stop raving about, and I'll never stop recommending. And that's exactly why I wanted to make this video today, because what we're gonna do today, or what I'm gonna do for everybody who's watching this video, is I'm gonna take you through the Ethel Cain cinematic universe, or what we currently know of it, and the story behind Preacher's Daughter, and how the character of Ethel Cain goes through the entire album, from growing up with her Christian Southern Baptist family to eventually being cannibalized. So I'm super excited. Since we're talking about disturbing content, like usual, oh my gosh, it's like I can't talk about anything else. Just know this video is gonna have a little bit of disturbing imagery, disturbing topics. We're gonna be talking about, of course, Christianity. So if religion is something that is sensitive to you, I would not recommend watching this video. Aside from that, we're also gonna be talking about things like family trauma, murder and hell and cannibalism. So if any of those things are things that you don't want to see, I'm so sorry, girl. I'll see you in the next video. That was kind of scary, guys. I feel like low-key this might be a little bit of a shorter video. Let's go ahead and start talking about who Ethel Cain is and what the Ethel Cain cinematic universe entails and what it surrounds. Ethel Cain is, of course, the name of the artist that we're talking about, but Ethel Cain is also a character throughout the entire album, and who is also prevalent throughout the entire Ethel Cain cinematic universe. That's what we're going to be calling it throughout the whole video. Now, the reason why I call it the Ethel Cain cinematic universe, even though we're talking about literally one album, is because this one album is not the only part of the story that we're going to be talking about today. It's actually only one part, because the Ethel Cain cinematic universe, or the Ethel Cain universe, is pretty much going to be consisting of 3 albums, 3 books, and 3 movies as well. That's what Ethel Cain is currently working on and what she's trying to put out. A lot of the information that I'm going to be talking about you can find on her Tumblr page, which she consistently updates, and a lot of people ask her questions on there. She answers them. She's super sick. She's super cool, and that's where I'm finding a lot of this information. And of course, I am also using the Genius lyrics and pages from the different interviews that she's done to also help me out a little bit. Now, the universe centers around these 3 women, and the way that we are passing down this trauma from family member to family member, because of course generational trauma is the biggest theme that we're going to see inside of this universe. It's pretty much like a full circle moment from Ethel Cain, which is who we're starting off with, the preacher's daughter, to her grandmother, which I believe is also named Ethel. So we're getting like a full circular moment tied in alongside the whole theme of religion and how it affects our main character Ethel, and how unfortunately her life unravels after she runs away from home and gets mixed up in some bad business. And what we're gonna do in this video to kind of help me out a little bit, kind of like what I do in every single video, is I like to dissect the video into different parts, each concerning a different story or a different portion of the book or music or video, whatever we're watching. So I'm gonna split this video by song, and we're gonna go ahead and take a look at each song from the track list, what it represents, what it means, what part of the story we're at, and we're gonna have fun. I know I'm gonna have a lot of fun because I love this album. Oh my god, I love this album so much. So let's get started with the very, very first song of the album, which is the intro, which is called Family Tree. Now, Family Tree is the very first song that we get to listen to in Preacher's Daughter, and we hear a little bit of words from a preacher actually giving a sermon, and then we get into the opening lines of Ethel Cain's story, comparing the character of Ethel Cain and Jesus Christ himself, which is pretty interesting. The verse that I specifically want to talk about is the second verse of the song, where she says, "Jesus can always reject his father, but he cannot escape his mother's blood. He'll scream and try to wash it off of his fingers, but he'll never escape what he's made up of." These are the opening lines that we get to Ethel Cain's generational trauma and how it's affecting her character. Mother Mary was famously Jesus' mother, and she was a virgin who gave birth to Jesus. And because of that, Jesus actually did not have any of the blood of his father, which we know to be God himself. Now, because of this, Jesus, of course, has his mother's blood, her genetics, everything like that. So he's unable to escape anything that comes from his mother's side or what she's passed on to him as well. Ethel Cain is essentially trying to say that because of the fact that she is her mother's daughter, she cannot escape the fate that she has set in store for her. So the life that her mother has lived, Ethel Cain will eventually live herself, and she will also experience the same traumas that her mother has too, as the wife of the preacher. Because of this as well, not only can she not escape her mother's blood and what her mother has experienced and how this is all set in store for her already, but she also cannot reject God, because from what we know here, the first verse, we actually see, "These crosses all over my body remind me of who I used to be. And Christ, forgive these bones I'm hiding from no one successfully." So Ethel Cain cannot hide the skeletons in the closet. She cannot reject God because God is her life at this point. She is the daughter of the preacher, of the deacon, and she can't escape the fact that religion will always have a hold on her as a person. We also get a couple more lines regarding fate in the chorus. "The fate's already fucked me sideways, swinging by my neck from the family tree. He'll laugh and say, 'You know I raised you better than this.' Then leave me hanging so they can all laugh at me." essentially, because she's been born into this family, the Ethel Cain cinematic universe of these three women, fate is already set in stone for her. She is going to experience the same generational trauma that every single woman in her family has experienced. This first song has a lot of different points to it that I really, really like myself. Now, aside from the lyrics themselves, a lot of them also allude to other things that they kind of remind me of. For example, the swinging by my neck from the family tree reminds me a lot of the witch hunt, Salem witch trials that had gone on at some point. So it makes me wonder if at some point this was found in Ethel Cain's family, and this is another generational trauma that she's referring to, of the women in her family having been fated to experience these horrible deaths. Aside from that, we also get the line, "He'll laugh and say, you know I raised you better than this." I think this is referring to her father and how he is kind of saying that even after everything that's happened to her, he rejects any blame and kind of says, like, I raised you better than this, so none of this is my fault, nor is it God's fault as well, since he is a man of God. And this also reminds me of that quote. Is it a quote or is it just something someone said that I can't seem to forget? And that's the idea that a daughter and her father will bond and laugh over the humiliation and embarrassment of the mother, but the daughter is unaware of the fact that she will one day face the same fate that the mother is facing. The idea that you will always eventually face the same tragedies and traumas that your mother has as well, because that is just the, not consequences, but the unfortunate happenings that come to you as a woman. Now we're going to talk about the second song in the album, which is called American Teenager. And this one is more of like a coming of age song, and it deals with the loss of Ethel Cain's father, Reverend Joseph Cain. Now, the first verse of this album is, "Grew up under a yellow light on the street, putting too much faith in the make-believe and another high school football team. The neighbor's brother came home in a box, but he wanted to go, so maybe it was his fault. Another red heart taken by the American dream." This second song kind of first starts out describing the idea of this super idealized American town that she lives in. It's a religious town called Shady Grove, and she talks about a football team. That's a super American thing. The soldier who unfortunately died, and the idea that it was his fault because he wanted to go off to war. And she then discusses in the pre-chorus, and I feel it there in the middle of the night when the lights go out and I'm all alone again. So she's feeling the heightened senses of loneliness from this town. She's all alone. She doesn't really have anyone that she relates to. And this is pretty much her when she's in high school. She's talking about being in the bleachers, kind of all alone and sad, which really sucks. That's kind of sad. Then we very quickly move on into verse 2, which is talking about the death of her father, Reverend Joseph Cain. "Sunday morning, hands over my knees in a room full of faces. I'm sorry if I sound off, but I was probably wasted. And I didn't feel so good. Head full of whiskey, but I always deliver. Jesus, if you're listening to me, let me handle my liquor. And Jesus, if you're there, why do I feel alone in this room with you?" So this is talking about her going to church. You know, her father has passed away at this point, and she, of course, she's the daughter of the preacher, and he's a very, very well-loved preacher in this town, and she's trying to go to church to not really, kind of like live his legacy, right? Like, you would want to see the preacher's daughter going to church and doing what he did every single Sunday, and you would want to see her enjoying that as well. Now, aside from this too, she is also letting us know that she goes to the service drunk. She's drinking, she's wasted, and at this point of the story, she's actually wasted because her lover had recently left her, and her lover's name, I believe, is Willoughby Tucker, and we learn a little bit more about him in the next song, so I won't talk about him too much right now. But she also mentions that even though she is a Christian, Jesus is supposed to be in the room with her because they're in a service, she still feels alone even though he's there with her. At the end of the song, we get the chorus repeated once again, and we also get the outro, which is also kind of a repeat of the chorus, where she says these important lines: say what you want, but say it like you mean it, with your fists for once, a long cold war with your kids at the front. So she's having this war internally and also externally as well with her family, because she's experiencing these feelings of anger. Her father has died, her lover has left her, she's a teenager, she's young, and she doesn't really know how to feel these emotions, right? She doesn't really know how to express them or how to deal with them properly too. She also mentions with your kids at the front. So this idea of generational trauma always leading to kids being put at the forefront of the trauma, right? The parents, they kind of have their kids always in the middle of it, and that's how the trauma gets passed down.
Hey guys, it is Editing Diva here. One more thing I wanted to mention as well is I completely missed a line that references a guy named Dale. That is a reference to Dale Earnhardt, who I believe was a NASCAR driving who died tragically in an accident, and he's like a really famous like Southern icon. So she's saying like, "Oh, do it for Dale," and this is actually in reference to another song that she has called Earnhardt. So just in case you guys thought I avoided or ignored that, I remembered while editing. So thanks.
And then from there, we can actually go ahead and move on to the next song, A House in Nebraska. Now we go ahead and we take a look at A House in Nebraska. And A House in Nebraska is a really sad song about longing and yearning for this person who's left you. And this is where we get to know a little bit more about Willoughby Tucker, which is, once again, a horrible name. Like, imagine having a boyfriend and being like, oh, my boyfriend's name is Willoughby. Right. So Willoughby Tucker basically leaves town in this song, right? He leaves her, and what she does in this song is reminisce about their memories together. At the beginning of the song, in the first verse, we get labored breaths and bed sores, sing it to me all day long, when the aching sound of silence used to be our favorite song. You and me against the world, you were my man and I your girl. We had nothing except each other. You were my whole world, but then the day came, you were up and gone. So essentially, she's talking about Willoughby. She's talking about how they used to sit together in silence, and that was like their moment, their alone time, their romantic moment that they were having together, just basking in the fact that they're in love, right? They're happy, they're young, they're living like their summer like fun time together, but eventually he does leave. And what she does in the chorus is reminisce about the house in Nebraska that they had to, not that they had together, but where they would go and enjoy time together on a dirty mattress on the second floor. And I still call home that house in Nebraska where we found each other on a dirty mattress on the second floor, where the world was empty, save you and I, where you came and I laughed and you left and I cried, where you told me even if we died tonight that I'd die yours. This is a very, very loaded chorus. Nebraska is something that Ethel Cain herself has mentioned that she just loves. She loves the idea of Nebraska. She's mentioned that it's like heaven on earth, I believe. From what I remember in the Genius article that I was reading, she mentioned this in W Magazine when she was asked about it. This is actually a really sad chorus, mainly because of the last line where she says, where you told me even if we died tonight that I'd die yours. Ethel Cain is a character who cannot live on her own, and she cannot live her life without having to be someone else's property, whether it be her father as the preacher's daughter or as Willoughby Tucker's girlfriend. You know what I mean? And that's really sad, because I know what it feels like to not really have a strong sense of self without having someone else there with you. Specifically Nicki Minaj. Me personally, if she left me, I wouldn't know what I would do. Even though I actually will be replacing her very, very soon. In the second verse, we get a couple more lines. These dirt roads are empty, the ones we paved ourselves. So these are the roads that Willoughby and Ethel Cain have walked themselves on their little dates and the trails that they've gone on. Your mama calls me sometimes to see if I'm doing well, And I lie to her and I say that I'm doing fine, when really I'd kill myself to hold you one more time. And it hurts to miss you, but it's worse to know that I'm the reason that you won't come home. So something happened between them, specifically something maybe on Ethel Cain's end, where Willoughby Tucker will just not come home and he doesn't want to see her anymore. So he's completely abandoned her. Then we get the chorus again, and then we get the verse 3, which is another really loaded verse. You know, I still wait at the edge of town, praying straight to God that maybe you'll come back around. I cry every day and the bottles make it worse, cause you were the only one I was never scared to tell I hurt. And I found photograph. Oh my god, I'm getting so congested. I cry every day and the bottles make it worse, cause you were the only one I was never scared to tell I hurt. And I found photographs of our school on the day we met. I thought you were so beautiful, it was love, I guess. And you might never come back home, and I might never sleep at night. But God, I just hope you're doing fine out there. I just pray that you're all right. So she's longing for Willoughby. Like, she's literally... she's just praying to God and hoping that he'll come back to her. Once again, we get reference to her usage of alcohol, which later down the road does end up... not helping her in any way possible. And she also feels sad about the fact that she's lost this only one person who she feels like she can relate to and connect with as well. Ethel Cain is a very, very lonely person in this storyline, and she doesn't really have many people that she can talk to. She can't really talk to her family, she doesn't really have friends, and her father has passed away as well. And the only thing that she can really do is turn to God, the only person that's been in her life for her entire life, because it's what the only thing that she's really known, and she turns to him to hope that Willoughby Tucker is doing okay. And she still has a little bit of faith in the religion that she has. So now we've just had a song about heartache, about Willoughby Tucker, but don't worry guys, because in our next song, Western Nights, Ethel Cain actually meets a new person. This is not good, by the way. Now, in Western Nights, we meet a new character to our Ethel Cain cinematic universe, and his name is Logan, but I don't remember what his last name is. She meets her new lover, Logan Phelps, in this song, and she is experiencing a whole new type of love compared to the one that she had with Willoughby Tucker. So Logan Phelps is a really different guy from what Ethel Cain has met so far, and I think that's why she's kind of like interested in him, because he's so different from the other guys that she's known, where the love that she had with Willoughby was like really like cute and tender. It was a very soft sort of love because they were teenagers, and this one's really different. So Logan Phelps is a guy who has a motorcycle, and he shows his love in very, very violent ways, and we learn about this in the first verse. What? The first verse. He's never looked more beautiful on his Harley in the parking lot, breaking into the ATM, sleeping naked when it gets too hot. I watched him show his love through shades of black and blue, starting fights at the bar across the street like you do. The neighbors beat on the walls while I'm face first in the bed. Show me how much I mean to you while I'm lying in these sheets undressed. So Logan Phelps is the type of person to resort to violence very, very quickly. He starts fights for Ethel Cain, and she sees this as his love for her. And from what we see in this first verse as well, their love is also very, very sexual in nature, and it seems like she only has worth to him if she's naked and in bed with him. What a great guy. Now, the pre-chorus, it mentioned this also a little bit as well. I'd hold the gun if you asked me to, but if you love me like you say you do, would you ask me to? So Ethel is super devoted to this guy. She's willing to hold a gun for him, shoot someone if she has to. She also kind of recognizes that the love that he has for her may not be really all there, and she wonders if he would even ask her to do something like this for him. Now, the chorus is, trouble's always gonna find you, baby, but so will I. Crying only because I'm happy. Hold me across every state line. I'm never gonna leave you, baby, even if you lose what's left of your mind, because you know I'll be right there beside you, riding through all these western nights. So She is saying that she is ride or die for this guy, Logan Phelps. She is always going to be there for him. She knows that this guy is trouble. His trouble is always going to find his way because of the way that he acts and because of his violent nature. But she doesn't care. She's always going to be there with him. The second verse is, I haven't spoken to my daddy in a long, long time. I don't want him to worry, always wondering if I'm all right. But the neighborhood keeps getting smaller, all starved out when the money's paper thin. All that's left are your walls and you'll die there. I should have known that there's no getting in. So we know that from earlier on in the previous songs, which song was it? American Teenager, that Ethel Cain's father has passed away and she hasn't talked to him in a long time, of course. And she hasn't really gotten the chance to communicate with her father about the life that she's currently living. And she knows that he would definitely worry about the fact that this is the life that she's chosen for herself. It's a pretty abusive relationship, I would say. I mean, she's always watching him get into fights. He only sees her as a sex object, but she doesn't want to leave. And she's using this idea of talking to her dad kind of as a coping mechanism. Now, her neighborhood is getting smaller and smaller. People are starting to leave. And also, I believe she's saying that it's hard to get into the mind of Logan Phelps because he's such an eccentric, violent guy. She doesn't really know how to connect with him properly. Now, in the outro of the song, we get, through these western nights, crying in the light of the static TV, I'll still be alright. Clinging onto you like some love-blind addict, I'll be screaming your name past the gas stations, trailing down the interstate. Please don't love how I need you, and know that one day you and I could be okay. So she is super dependent on this guy like we saw before. She is madly in love, and she's willing to do whatever she can for him. And she even admits it herself, you know, she's saying that she's clinging onto him like some love-blind addict because she's wearing rose-colored sunglasses, right? She doesn't see the red flags at all. And that is the end of Western Nights. And then from there, we go into Family Tree once again, but this is no longer the intro. This is the full version of Family Tree. These crosses. Family Tree we saw before. We know that from that song, we're kind of learning about Ethel Cain and who her family is, what their life is like. I just pulled up my pajama pants because now we're getting serious. And I also want to mention, after this song, this is where the album starts getting a lot more morbid, and also starts going into more disturbing aspects. So if you are sensitive to these topics, once again, guys, please don't do that to yourself. So once again, we get the same verse that we saw before, just with a couple of changes now. These crosses all over my body remind me of who I used to be. Give myself up to him in offering. Let him make a woman out of me. I'm just a child, but I'm not above violence. My mama raised me better than that. When the preacher talks, that man demands his silence. And daddy said, shoot first and run and don't look back. So now we get a better look of her family and how they've raised her as well. Now, first things first, Ethel Cain is talking about these crosses all over her body that remind her of who she used to be. Now, Ethel Cain, the actual artist, otherwise known as Hayden, actually has a lot of religious tattoos herself. And even though she herself left the church early on in her life, when she was a teenager at 16, she still has these tattoos to remember the life that she used to have in the Catholic Church, and that even though she's left the church, they're still a part of her. Now, aside from that line, we also kind of learn more of the religious aspects of Ethel Cain's life. Give myself up to him in offering. This is like the idea of a woman giving her body after marriage. You know, in the Catholic and Christian church, you're supposed to save yourself for marriage and then give yourself to your husband and vice versa. I'm just a child, but I'm not above violence. My mama raised me better than that. This is a really interesting line because she's saying that she's not above violence, so she will take violence as the route. And we've seen this in her relationship with Logan Phelps, who, by the way, actually dies at some point in this song. His character dies off in a shootout. And she actually says that her mom is the one who raised her to be this way. So her mom says that violence can be the answer for many things, which is really scary that they've instilled this idea onto Ethel Cain as a child, because this can mean a variety of things. The fact that she's saying violence can be the answer for things, that could mean like abuse between her father and her mother, abuse from her mother onto Ethel Cain herself, or maybe she's just seen a violent nature from her mother too. But regardless, all of those are really, really bad things that she could be talking about. What's interesting in the last two lines of this is she refers to the same person, her father, by two different things, as the preacher and then as daddy. When she refers to him as the preacher, she's talking about the religious figure that her father is and how he's a separate entity for the church. But when she talks about her daddy, that's her dad that she's talking about, the man who raised her and who passed away. And she also says that daddy says, shoot first, then run and don't look back. So he has a very strange approach to how she should deal with situations. They've left a very negative impact on her and how she should deal with the trauma in her life. And that's why she ends up getting into more trouble as the album progresses. Now, the chorus of this song is, so take me down to the river and bathe me clean. Put me on the back of your white horse to ride all the way to the chapel, let you wash over me. So this is alleging to the idea of being washed of your sins, which is baptism. When you enter Christianity and Catholicism, you are baptized, where you are kind of anointed with holy water, and your sins are being washed away. Aside from this, she refers to the white horse, which of course, white horses, white doves, these are usually seen as pure and heroic and stuff like that. And she sees Logan kind of as her hero in the previous song and in this song as well. So she sees being with Logan, even though he is a bad, violent person, as being taken to the chapel and being anointed of her sins. So she's very naive to the fact that he's actually not doing anything good for her at all. And the second verse is, I've killed before and I'll kill again. Take the noose off, wrap it tight around my hand. They say heaven hath no fury like a woman scorned. And baby, hell don't scare me. I've been times before. So this is another, I'm saying, oh my gosh, this is such a loaded verse. All her verses are so loaded because they're so well written. She's saying essentially that in the first family tree, she mentioned being tied at the neck by a noose and hanging from the family tree. Now she's taking the noose off. She's actually leaving her family and this history that we've learned about so far, and she's taking control of her life as well. She also says, they say heaven hath no fury like a woman scorned, because at this point in the song, this is where Logan is gunned down, because if I'm not wrong, there was a robbery that went wrong and the police gunned him down, and she's just like extremely upset. She's mourning, and that's why she is a woman scorned. And she ends off by saying that hell doesn't scare her because she's been times before, because she's experienced so much trauma in her life. And we learn a lot more of this trauma in our next song, which is Hard Times. Now, Hard Times is actually one of my favorite songs from the album because of how just the lyrics as well as the actual tone of the song as well. And the lyrics themselves tell us such a big story of Ethel Cain's character. And this is really where the story starts to develop into something more than what we thought it was going to be. Hard Times is a song dictating the abuse that Ethel Cain held at the hands of her father from 9 until 18. At this point, we learn the reason why Ethel Cain is such a heavily internally conflicted character with religion, with her family, even though we've learned that her family is quite strange in the way that they've raised her, is because Reverend Joseph Cain, Ethel Cain's father, actually abused her as a child until she was 18 as well. Now, we're learning about a big family secret in the Cain family where essentially Ethel Cain was told to hide the fact that her father would abuse her from childhood. And we learn about this in the first lines of the song. Hide me there under the leaves, 9 going on 18. Lay it on me, tell me a story about how it ends, where you're still the good guy, I'll make pretend. because I hate the story where happiness ends and dies with you. So we get hide me there under the leaves. She is being hidden as a person, as all the trauma that she's endured, and she's told that she should not tell anybody, even though she's endured these traumatic events, by someone that she's trusted all her life. This is her father. This is a religious figure as well, a very well-respected religious figure in her town who has abused her. Now, she experienced this trauma at the age of 9, and it's affected her the entire her entire teenage life, as well as her entire young adult life as well. At this point, the storyline takes place when she's 20, so she's just recounting her past and all of the things that have occurred to her. Lay it on me, tell me a story about how it ends where you're still the good guy. So, like I said before, Reverend Joseph Cain was supposed to be a great man. He's very well respected in his community. He's the preacher. He holds his sermon every Sunday. You know, of course, you would respect a religious figure. But we've seen time and time again how no matter what position you're in, your position does not define your character and who you are as a person. So she's always hearing these stories about her father, how he was such a great man, how he was such a godly man, etc., etc. And this is the narrative that she's been told to follow. She makes pretend of the entire situation. She tries to not tell anybody about it. She tries to keep this family secret about the fact that she's endured this trauma. And of course, we have to remember, she's using childlike things like I'll make pretend like kids do, because she was a child when this happened. The last lines, I hate the story where happiness ends and dies with you. She's lived a very unfair life up to this point. Her story always revolves around a man in her life inflicting harm upon her. So Reverend Joseph Cain died when she was 10, and she was 9 during the abuse that happened to her. And he gets his happiness, he gets his whatever the heck as a horrible, disgusting man, and it dies with him as well because he's gone, and she has no way of getting any closure to what's happened to her. She has to live with this shame in her now because of what her father did to her. In the chorus, we get, I thought good guys get to be happy. I'm not happy. I am poison in the water and unhappy. Little girl who needs her daddy real bad. This chorus has a couple of different meanings as well. It seems pretty simple. You know, she's the good guy in the story, and she's supposed to be happy. She's our main character. She's supposed to live a happy life and get her happy ending, but this doesn't happen to her. Right after, she refers to herself as a little girl, because that's what she is. She was a little girl at this point, and she, unfortunately, even though she's felt this shame and this guilt, and she's experienced this horrible abuse at the hands of her father, she still refers to him as her daddy because that's her father, and she still wants a father figure in her life, and she needs this father figure in her life. And unfortunately, this is the only one that she has, this predator that she unfortunately suffered at the hands of. We even saw in the other songs too how she refers to her daddy as the preacher as well, and how she talks about him and still thinks about him even though he's done these horrible things to her, because she just wants the parental figure that she deserved. This is such a sad verse that we get at this point. Like, in the corner on my birthday, you watched me dancing right there in the grass. I was too young to notice that some types of love could be bad. Praying I'd be like you, doing all the things that you do, and I still do, and that scares me. What we're learning now is that as a child, Ethel Cain was being preyed upon by her father, and she wasn't even aware of it because she was too young. How could she know? You know, that's her father. How could she know that he could do something like this to her, you know? And instead of watching her lovingly like a father should, he's watching her with like a horrible, dark look as well. I'm sure you guys can tell what I'm trying to say without actually saying to it. I'm just alluding to it because it's so disgusting. And she mistook it as a fatherly, like, wholesome kind of love, unfortunately, when meanwhile he was just a sadistic, horrible person. You know, she prayed that she'd be like him because, of course, he's her father figure. He's the town preacher. Like, everybody views him as some amazing man, and she wants to be just like him. But unfortunately, because, like I said before, he's her father, she still has like this trauma bond with him, which is really sad because there's this hatred and admiration for him all at the same time. Now, the outro is a repetition of a couple of different lines that I'll talk about. I'm tired of you still tied to me, bleeding whenever you want. Too tired to move, too tired to leave. I'm tired of you still tied to me. And then those couple of lines repeat. She is super tired of the fact that this entire situation, they're all related and they're all stuck together. They're all tied together because of the family tree. The entire family tree is the reason why she is still tied to this man who abused her. Even though he's gone from the world, he's always gonna be there, unfortunately. Like we saw before, everybody talks about him. He's always seen as a good man, and that's her blood father. She is never gonna lose that tie to him, and that is Hard Times. From here we move on to our 7th track, which is Thoroughfare. Alright gang, we are getting through the album. We're getting there. Right now we are in track 7, and this begins act 2 of Preacher's Daughter. Now we're getting into the second part, and we're getting into some really, really heavy areas at this point. You guys can see my pajamas. I am a little tired, but we're pushing through. Hopefully when you guys watch this, it's not 12:17 a.m. and you're not functioning off a large glass of coffee. Ethel Cain meets a new person. Yes, she does. She meets someone named Isaiah, who we will know a lot more about throughout the rest of the album. But this person is the
demise
of Ethel Cain as a character. So let's go ahead and take a look at the song Thoroughfare, and hopefully I don't die in the process. You fell in love with America when you were 12 years old, and by 17 you knew you had to see it all. You loved your dad and the love he had for your mother, so you had to get out and go chasing its sweet call. Who Ethel Cain is talking about is, of course, the Isaiah character. And at this point, she's actually run away from home, and she is looking for someone to help her with this. So she meets Isaiah. He offers to drive her around. We learn more about this in the second verse, but Isaiah is someone who saw his father as a role model, right? He loves the way that his father loved his mother, and he knew he had to live a similar life and replicate that. Now, this is actually another example of generational trauma as well, because even though this seems like a sweet line, Isaiah's father had a very toxic and abusive relationship with Isaiah's mother. And it's kind of assumed that Isaiah's father would abuse his mother heavily, and that's why Ethel Cain ends up receiving a similar sort of abuse from Isaiah later on. But, you know, we can interpret this in many different ways, but that's just how I see it. In the second verse, we get, I met you there in Texas somewhere on the thoroughfare, on the side of the road in some torn up clothes with a pistol in my pocket. I didn't trust no one, but you said, baby, don't run, I'll take you anywhere. So I hopped right in, out of luck to spend, and at least your truck beats walking. So she met him at a very, very desperate time. She just ran away. She's somewhere in Texas. She doesn't really know where she is. And Isaiah's like, yeah, I'll take you with me. The chorus is, and you said, hey, do you want to see the West with me? Because love's out there and I can't leave it be. And I said, honey, love's never meant much to me, but I'll come with you if you're sure it's what you need. They make their way through the west of America, and they're together throughout all of this. And this is kind of where they start to know each other, and they eventually start to feel attraction towards each other as well. And essentially, Isaiah is looking for a lover. That's what he's on this road trip for. He's looking for someone so he could fall in love and replicate the same relationship his father had with his mother as well. What he doesn't realize is that it ends up being Ethel Cain, because Ethel Cain mentions in verse 3, in these motel rooms, I started to see you differently, because for the first time since I was a child, I could see a man who wasn't angry. So she meets someone who's unlike any of the people that she's ever known before. He's not like Logan, who is a very, very angry man. He's not like her father, who also was a very angry, violent man as well. And because of this, she sees someone who she thinks she can rely on and form a relationship. In the 4th verse, we get, and he said, it's been a long damn time since I left Florida. No one left to leave and no one left to love. But now that I met you, I finally know just where I'm heading. And we found heaven in time where your western sunshine met my deep southern wet. And you got lost in it and you found yourself hard pressed for air and sweating. They eventually end up in a sexual relationship. They've realized that what they're looking for has been beside them this entire time. And then once we get to the bridge, we kind of get to like the end of the story, for now at least, of their road trip. And once we reached the coast, you said, end of the line, we finally reached the edge after all this time. I didn't find my love, but I still made it this far without it. And then you turned to me and stared into me deep and said, well, maybe not, cause look at what I've got. You might not be my love, but baby, I doubt it. So this is pretty interesting because, of course, they've just met each other. They're relying on each other. They formed this sexual relationship. And Isaiah doesn't really know if Ethel Cain is his love, but at the same time he also kind of does, and he feels himself feeling romantic or like attraction to her as well. And then we get a repeat of the chorus and the outro, and we move on to Gibson Girl, which is one of my absolute favorite songs in this album, and we learn a lot more about the sexual relationship between Isaiah and Ethel Cain, as well as all the other things that she experiences as well. So at this point, they're in California. They're in the West Coast, and they've arrived in California, and immediately after, Isaiah begins to pimp out Ethel Cain at strip clubs. And in the song Gibson Girl, we learn more about this and how she becomes kind of addicted to this pleasure, and also becomes addicted to the drugs that Isaiah constantly feeds her, and she loses her sense of reality as well. Now, this song is super slow and sexual. It's a really great song. Every single verse that we get is mainly about sexuality and the relationship that they have with each other. Verse 1 is, you want to love me right now. You want to get alone with me. You want to get my clothes off and hurt me. You came alone to me from however far away, asking me to know how I know you're all the same. This is referring to the previous song where they met. They had just known each other. They both came from very opposite ends and they ended up together. She knows that pretty much what Isaiah wants from her is her body. And she also knows that this is pretty much all she's gonna get from him too. The pre-chorus is black leather and dark glasses, pouring another while I shake my ass. He's cold-blooded, so it takes more time to bleed. Obsession with the money, addicted to the drugs, says he's in love with my body, that's why he's fucking it up. And then he says to me, and then we get into the chorus, baby, if it feels good, then it can't be bad, where I can be immoral in a stranger's lap. And if you want it good, downright iconic, something they all want that only you can have. So let's break that down, because that's a lot. The pre-chorus is talking about Isaiah as a person. You know, he's like this dark figure. She's never known anyone like him before. She is in these strip clubs, being fed drugs, alcohol. She is being pimped out as well by Isaiah. And she's experiencing this really dark nightlife situation, and he's a super heavy influence on her. She knows that he's ruining her body, he's feeding her drugs, and she's just with strangers, and she's okay with it because she feels good, she feels pleasure. And if she feels good, then it can't be bad. And that's where she's losing her sense of reality, right? He's grooming her. I'm going to say gaslighting her. That's pretty much what I saw in all the articles too. And I was like, yeah, gaslighting her is a good word. Where he's saying like, well, if it feels good, like you're fine then. Like, it's not a bad thing. She is also kind of rebelling about everything that she's known in her life. Everything regarding the Catholic Church and her religion as well, and her father being a preacher. She's rebelling against all of it because she's doing something so immoral. Like, she knows that this is all a sin. It's not good. And she's kind of reveling in the fact that she can do these really bad things and feel pleasure from it as well. And that's Gibson Girl. Now, I love this song. When I first listened to the song, I was like, oh my god, like, this is such a good song. And then I, of course, learned the storyline, and I was like, oh. But I still love it. And I also love the next song after this is the very iconic, the very well-known, the very popular Ptolemaea, which is, I can't even say it properly, first of all, but whatever. I can't even speak English properly half the time. Ptolemaea, which is track 9 on Preacher's Daughter.
Iconic.
So let's talk about it. Where do I even start with the mastery of this song and how good it is? Oh my god, this song is so good. If you could hear any song on this album, this is it. Wow. I show everybody this song. I showed my boyfriend it and he was like, okay. Like, how do you even react to the song? Like, oh. Ptolemaea, if you guys didn't know, is based off of Dante's Divine Inferno, where it's actually a layer of hell where traitors reside. And this is what Ethel Cain is talking about when she is in a drug-induced spiral from all the drugs that Isaiah is giving her. Okay, something to know about the song is that part of it is from the point of view of Isaiah, which is super interesting. This is the first time in the album that we get a look at anyone else's point of view, because we've only been seeing Ethel Cain's point of view, and now we're getting words from Isaiah himself. So he starts off with, I followed you in, I was with you there, I invited you in, twice I did. You love blood too much, but not like I do, not like I do. Now, of course, he invited Ethel in to his life, his horrible, disgusting life, and he took her in once as a friend, like, come on, I'll drive around with you, and then twice as a lover, and also as an object that he would only take advantage of later on by feeding her drugs, by selling her out, all these horrible things. Now, the lines, you love blood too much, but not like I do, not like I do, it refers to a couple of different things. One is Ethel Cain's devotion to Christianity and the blood of Jesus Christ himself. The blood of Jesus Christ is something that is talked about quite a bit in Christianity, and it's a very prominent thing as well, you know. And of course, Ethel Cain, being someone who has grown up in a religious family, the daughter of a preacher, she has always loved Jesus Christ and his blood, and she's referred to him many times in the album too, even comparing herself to him at the very beginning as well. Now, unfortunately, Isaiah holds the same name as the prophet Isaiah from the Bible. And aside from this, too, he also mentions that she loves blood too much, but not like he does. And this is actually a reference to a variety of different things. It could be her blood, his own blood, the blood of his victims, if he's done this multiple times before. It actually acts as kind of a foreshadowing of what's to come. Because, like I mentioned at the very beginning, Isaiah ultimately ends up murdering Ethel Cain and cannibalizing her as well. So there's like this difference in love of blood, where Ethel Cain loves Jesus Christ's blood, the blood of Jesus, in her religion. Isaiah loves blood in a completely different, demented way. The next lines are, heard you, saw you, felt you, gave you, need you, love you, love you, love you. And this is repeated multiple different times. It's just a repeat over and over and over again. And it could be Ethel Cain hallucinating. It's Isaiah repeating these loves as well. And this could be the sort of downfall of Ethel Cain as she starts this spiral, because these lines get more and more demented as they're repeated as well. And then before Ethel Cain starts talking again, we get a final line from Isaiah that says, "You do well to say yes to me," which is super threatening. It's super scary. And he's basically saying and telling her to be obedient. And then we finally get to hear from our good friend Ethel Cain here. "Suffer does the wolf crawling to thee, promising a big fire, any fire, saying I'm the one, he's gonna take me. I'm on fire, I'm on fire, I'm on fire. Suffering is nigh, drawing to me, calling me the one, I'm the white light, beautiful finite." The wolf could refer to a couple of different things, but since she's saying that the wolf is suffering, it's pretty much Ethel Cain. Ethel Cain is the wolf who is crawling to Isaiah, and she's okay with being on fire. And being on fire could also refer to a variety of things too. I would say it could refer to being on fire mentally, physically. She's burnt out, she's drugged out, she's completely gone as a person. She's in this drug spiral. And this could also be a fire as well that she actually enjoys. This fire of being in love, being wanted by someone else as well, having this figure who needs you and wants you. Suffering is nigh, drawing to me, calling me the one, I'm the white light, beautiful finite. So Ethel is supposed to be this entity, this beautiful, amazing white light in Isaiah's life. And Ethel she's believing this. She's taking this in and believing it. And she's being seen as this saint or prophet and, this person that Isaiah needs in his life. Kind of like she is that prophet or martyr that Isaiah is looking up to, like his own God. Then she says, "Even the iron still fears the rod. Hiding from something I cannot stop. Walking on shadows, I can't lead him back. Buckled on the floor when night comes along. Daddy's left and mama won't come home." So even the iron still fears the rod essentially means like even like the toughest things like iron is still gonna fear and be afraid of bad things and things that will eat away at them, like rotting, decomposition. Hiding from something I cannot stop. Walking on shadows, I can't lead him back. Buckled on the floor when night comes along. So she's walking on shadows, in the shadow of Isaiah, essentially. At this point in the song, Ethel is kind of missing the Isaiah that she first knew, right? That sweetheart that took her along for a ride when she had no one else to turn to, and took her in when he was simply looking for a lover to love the same way his dad loved his mom. She knows that she can't lead him back to that path because it's gone. And that may not actually have been him ever, right? We don't know. Now, daddy's left and mama won't come home is the last line of this like paragraph that we're looking at right now, where of course Ethel Cain's father has passed. She doesn't have him anymore, and she's ran away from home. Mama won't come home because her mother has been left in their town, and Ethel Cain is now in California, far away. Then we have a couple of lines from Isaiah as well, once again. "You poor thing, sweet morning lamb, there's nothing you can do, it's already been done." Now, this could be lines from Isaiah as himself, or it could be referring to the prophet Isaiah too. Isaiah is someone who comes to redeem people of their sins, right? He's kind of like a cleanser, and he removes sins from people who have committed them, right? Like reconciliation, essentially. Isaiah is telling Ethel that there's nothing else that she can do, and that everything has already been done. She's already too far gone in this drug bender, in the rotting of her body and her soul and her being as a religious woman as well. And he refers to her as a sweet morning lamb. And in the Catholic and Christian religion, lambs are the followers of God. You would always say Lamb of God, and that would also be Jesus Christ as well too. And once again, we get this comparison of Ethel Cain and Jesus Christ. What fear a man like you brings upon a woman like me. Please don't look at me. I can see it in your eyes. He keeps looking at me. Tell me, what have you done? Stop, stop, stop. Make it stop, stop. And then this is like the iconic part of the song, by the way, guys. The part where she screams, make it stop, I've had enough. And she repeats stop over and over and over again. And by the last stop, it's this like insane shriek scream from Ethel Cain. Stop. You know, these heavy voices start to take over. It's a distorted instrumental at this point as well. When you listen to this part of the song, it literally is like a bodily reaction that you have of like, because it's such an insane part of the song. This is like the part of the song that made it for me. I was like, wow, like Ethel Cain is a genius. That woman, her mind, she has the mind of a mastermind.
See, I'm telling you, I have the mind of a I have the mind of a mastermind. What's that? I don't know, but you know, I'm so creative like that.
Now, throughout all of these lines, Ethel Cain is actually being attacked by Isaiah. He's attacking her, and by the final stop, she is being taken over completely. This could represent her death, or it could also represent you know, when her drug bender takes over and she completely enters like full hallucination as well. Then we get the lines, I am the face of love's rage, I am the face of love's rage, which represents the love that Isaiah and Ethel Cain had for one another, where really it wasn't a love at all. It was a tormented, violent relationship where unfortunately Ethel Cain suffered at the hands of her lover. Now, at this point, because Ethel Cain has been killed by Isaiah, she is the sacrifice to cleansing someone else's sins, whether it be Isaiah himself or someone else in his life too. And we get a look at another portion of the Ethel Cain cinematic universe, which is the Daughters of Cain cult. And we get a couple of lines regarding this cult and what it's all about. Blessed be the daughters of Cain, bound to suffering eternal through the sins of their fathers committed long before their conception. Blessed be their whore mothers, tired and angry waiting with bated breath in a ferry that will never move again. Blessed be the children, each and every one, come to know their God through some senseless act of violence. Blessed be you, girl, promised to me by a man who can only feel hatred and contempt towards you. I am no good nor evil, simply I am, and I have come to take what is mine. I was there in the dark when you spilled your first blood. I am here now as you run from me still. Run then, child. You can't hide from me forever. And this ends off the song. The Daughters of Cain is a cult who has these teachings that we learn about eventually later on. And these teachings are what Isaiah is following. And they're bound to suffering eternal through the sins of their fathers committed long before their conception. And we also have a blessing towards their whore mothers who are tired and angry waiting with bated breath in a ferry that will never move again. So fathers that have committed horrific sins that will eventually pass down to their daughters, and mothers who are angry and are stuck in one place. Sounding very, very familiar to the parents of Ethel Cain, Joseph Cain, and I believe it's Vera Cain, the mother of Ethel Cain. Blessed be children, each and everyone come to know their God through some senseless act of violence. Now, in the town Ethel Cain grew up in, the preacher, the one who taught everyone about God and spoke about these teachings of God as well, showed this God through a senseless act of violence. The violence that he committed against Ethel Cain, and God knows how many other people as well. And this is how Ethel Cain came to know her religion, through a senseless act of violence. Then he says, blessed be you, girl, speaking to Ethel Cain herself, promised to me by a man who can only feel hatred and contempt towards you. Referring to Ethel Cain's father, who possibly never actually loved her, which I would believe, and only felt hatred and contempt towards Ethel Cain, possibly for being so similar to her mother. and this is why he enacted these horrific crimes upon her. And then at the end, these lines about I'm not good or evil, simply I am, and I have come to take what is mine. This refers to death, who as a person, as a being, as a thing, is not good or bad. It simply exists, and it has to come at some point for everybody. And it's there to take Ethel Cain with him, because she has been killed by Isaiah. I was there in the dark when you spilled your first blood. I am here now as you run from me still. From the moment her life began to slip, from the moment she spilled her first blood, he's been there waiting, because what Ethel Cain has had is a very quick downward spiral into wasting her life away and eventually dying. And that is Ptolemaea, one of the best songs on Preacher's Daughter. Then we can move on to the 10th track and the 11th track as well. I'm going to do them together because they're both instrumentals. August Underground and Televangelism. Now, these two tracks are instrumentals, like I mentioned before, so we don't get any lyrics, but we get titles as kind of reference points to where our story is going. August Underground refers to an exploitation film created in, I believe, 2001, which is a whole other video I could make on this movie, honestly, where we see a serial killer who goes on a massive tirade, killing and murdering different people, while his friend and his accomplice records everything. So it's meant to be like a found footage snuff film kind of movie. The plotline of the movie itself doesn't really play much into the story, aside from, of course, the idea of the serial killer going and killing multiple people, which could refer to the fact that maybe Isaiah has done this before. It's kind of like a rest area for us to kind of take in what's happened. And it's also the point of the story where Ethel Cain is in an abandoned shack in the woods, and her body is there as well. You know, Isaiah has done what he's done, and Ethel Cain, unfortunately, has met the end of her life. Televangelism is, of course, referring to televangelism, which is something that we see quite a bit in Christian and Catholic religion, you know, preaching the Bible on TV, asking for money and things like that. Televangelism kind of represents Ethel Cain's ascension into heaven as well. So her spirit has gone up and her body is still down on earth. At this point, because her spirit is up in heaven, this then brings us into the next part of the album, the second last song, Sun-Bleached Files, where we get to hear from Ethel Cain now as a spirit and how she's looking down on herself and the life that she's currently lived. Now, in Sun-Bleached Files, this is essentially Ethel Cain reminiscing on the life that she's lived and wishing that she could have stayed in her safe haven. In the first verse, we get Sun-Bleached Files sitting on the windowsill, waiting for the day that they escape. They talk about all that money and how their babies are always changing while they're breathing in the poison of the paint. What I wouldn't give to be in church this Sunday, listening to the choir, so heartfelt, all singing. God loves you, but not enough to save you. So baby girl, good luck taking care of yourself. So Ethel Cain is looking down on earth, and she is watching a Christian family, you know, just having a regular day, talking about money, talking about their babies, you know, breathing in the poison of the pain of the houses, and how she's saying, like, how she would love to be in the church on that Sunday listening to the choir, because even though she resented the church and the life that she lived, that was the safety that she had grew up in, and that was something that was just regular to her. It was a regular day in her life, and now that she's looking back on it in the afterlife, she wishes that she could go back to it just one more time and be the person that she was before. God loves you, but not enough to save you. This represents the fact that even though God loves you, if you believe in God, and he is there and he is someone that you can pray to and talk to, he does not love you enough to save you from the bad things that will happen to you. This is something that Ethel Cain mentions. She also mentioned this in an interview as well, how God will love you, but bad things will still happen to you, and it's not up to him to save you from them. It's actually yourself who is in control of whether or not you can take yourself out of certain situations and whatnot. Then in the chorus we get, so I said fine, because that's how my daddy raised me. If they strike once, then you hit him just twice as hard. But in the end, if I bent under the weight that they gave me, then this heart would break and fall twice as hard. This is kind of referring to what we saw before, where Ethel Cain's parents have always taught her to fight back and to resort to violence. She kind of realizes that doesn't really help at all, and that it's just gonna repeat everything that she's faced so far, you know? And she's just gonna break and end up hurting herself more in the process if she turns to violence. In the second verse, we all know how it goes. The more it hurts, the less it shows. But I still feel like they all know, and that's why I can never go back home. And I spend my life watching it go by from the sidelines, and God, I've tried, but I think it's about time I put up a fight. Now at this point, we kind of talk about the fact that Ethel Cain had escaped from home. She ran away from home, and if she goes back, like, she just can't go back. And this is how she feels. She can't go back home because she's done so many things. She's left her community, and she knows that she would be so ashamed and guilty of everything that she's done that she just can't go back to where she was before. She's looking at it from the outside going in the afterlife, and at the same time, while she's lived her life, she's doing this as well, right? Like, when you're doing bad things, you kind of take a step back and look at yourself and think, why am I living my life this way? Why am I doing this to myself, you know? And that's what she's referring to here. Now, the bridge is a little bit of repetition once again, but like the main points I want to talk about are, if it's meant to be, then it will be. So I met him there and told him I believe. Singing, if it's meant to be, then it'll be. I forgive it all as it comes back to me. And then it repeats. This line kind of talks about the fact that, you know, if something happens, it's because it's meant to happen. And that's kind of like a protection that she has for herself. And it's also something that you kind of come to terms to if you are a religious person in Christianity or Catholicism, where you have to accept that bad things will happen to you. It's just gonna happen. She even says, I forgive it all as it comes back to me, because she's forgiving the abuse that she's gone through, and she's putting a stop to it. So she's stopping the cycle, and she's not gonna let it keep affecting her at this point in her life. And then at the end, we get another couple of sad lines. I'm still praying for that house in Nebraska, by the highway out on the edge of town. Dancing with the windows open. I can't let go when something's broken. It's all I know, and it's all I want now. So she's looking back to a house in Nebraska, the third track that we talked about earlier on. She's reminiscing on the relationship that I had with Willoughby, which is the purest and most wholesome love that she's had in this entire album. She still thinks about this house, and she still thinks about the safety and comfort that she had there. And that ends off the song Sun Bleached Files, which then takes us into our final track. Another one of my favorite songs on this album, Strangers. God, do I love this song, because it just makes me so, like, it's sad. There's a little bit of humor in it. So much encapsulated in this song. And the lyricism is so smart that I think, aside from Ptolemaea, this is one of my favorite songs. This, Gibson Girl, Ptolemaea, top 3. Love them. And Hard Times. Sorry. Hard Times is so good, but it's so sad. This song starts off with an intro from a preacher's sermon, and Ethel Cain actually mentioned on her Tumblr. By the way, I would always recommend checking out her Tumblr. It's great. She posts lots of stuff on there. A lot of Ethel Cain content that you typically wouldn't see, so I highly recommend. But it's actually a sermon from her great-grandmother's funeral, where the preacher's saying, God is telling you and I there is death for all of us, but then we find that the scriptures also tell us that we have a great promise, that there is a better place for those who believe in the Lord Jesus Christ. So this is referring to heaven, and where we will go after we die, and how we have this promise that we will go to a much better place than what we're currently experiencing. And then we go into the first verse. In your basement, I grow cold, thinking back to what I was always told. Don't talk to strangers or you might fall in love. Freezer bride, you're sweet divine. You devour like smoked bovine hide. How funny, I never considered myself tough. You're so handsome, walking over to me now. This first verse, as we can probably tell, is about Ethel Cain now being dead, being in this basement of Isaiah, and how her body is growing cold, and she is kind of looking back at everything that's kind of happened to her. Don't talk to strangers or you might fall in love. So she's fallen in love with Isaiah, and unfortunately it has ended in her demise. Now, we get some really nice lyricism in this song. Freezer bride, you're sweet divine, because of course, he's put her in a freezer to preserve her body. You're sweet divine because Isaiah is eventually going to eat her. And she even says, you devour like smoked bovine hides. He's eating her as if she's like meat. Or like, I guess that's like jerky. He's devouring her. And that could be devouring in so many different ways, by the way. Like, he's devoured her body, he's devoured her spirit, etc., etc. This is one of my favorite lines. How funny, I never considered myself tough. So she was never tough in her life. She was very naive, but at the same time, she never considered herself tough because she didn't know she would be so hard to eat and chew. What? Oh my god, I love that. It's so smart. It's like, I love it, of course. And at the end of this verse, Isaiah is walking over to her body, and this is so sad. Even though he's killed her and he's walking over to her, she's still like, oh, you're so handsome. Like, she's still in love with him. She still has these feelings for him. And then we get to the chorus. I tried to be good. Am I no good? And then she repeats herself. With my memory restricted to a Polaroid in evidence. I just wanted to be yours. Can I be yours? Can I be yours? Just tell me I'm yours. If I'm turning in your stomach and I'm making you feel sick. So she tries to be good in her life. You know, she tried to live a good, holy life, free of sin. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. She led down a bad life instead of drugs and alcohol, and unfortunately, like, being sold out by Isaiah. She's asking if she's no good. She still has these feelings of like, am I not enough? Was I not worth it? And she's saying that her memory is restricted to a Polaroid in evidence because eventually the police will discover her body and the daughters of Cain and Isaiah and all of that. And that's what her memory is going to be. A Polaroid in evidence that the police will have for everything that Isaiah and the daughters of Cain have done. I just wanted to be yours. Can I be yours? So once again, oh my god, even though he did all of this to her, she still loves him and she wants to be his. She's longing for this man who's done nothing but hurt her, much like most of the men in her life as well. And then the final line, I mean, like, once again, amazing lyricism. If I'm turning in your stomach and I'm making you feel sick. She can't turn in her grave because she doesn't have one. So she's turning in Isaiah's stomach because he's cannibalized her and he's eaten her. And she's making him feel sick because food poisoning, you can't eat humans, it's not good for you. But verse 2 starts out with, when my mother sees me on the side of a milk carton in Winn-Dixie's dairy aisle, she'll cry and wait up for me. Now, in the 90s, I believe it is, or 90s or 80s, when someone was missing, their face would show up on the side of a milk carton, and this was how you would publicize missing children. Ethel Cain is talking about the fact that she's gonna show up as a missing person because she's run away from home, and no one knows that she's actually dead. So her mom is gonna have this grief, hoping that her daughter returns, and she'll wait for her, even though she's unaware of the fact that Ethel Cain is dead. We'll make love in your attic all night, euphoric in some strange delight. I'm happy you're here because he told me I should be. You're so handsome when I'm all over your mouth. This is an interesting line, we'll make love in your attic all night, because I think she sees herself being cannibalized and eaten by Isaiah as some form of sick and twisted love. She thinks that this is love to her still. At least that's how I see it, because he's consuming her, he's eating her. And to her, that's still passionate in some way. And she even says it's euphoric in some strange delight to know that the man that she loves is going to be the one consuming her. And she's happier because he told her she should be happier like this, that this is the way that her life should be, and she believes it. She's still allowing herself to be gaslit by this. And then once again, because she's still in love with him, she still views him as handsome when she's all over his mouth after him having consumed her. Found you just to tell you that I made it real far, and that I never blamed you for loving me the way that you did. While you were torn apart, I would still wait with you there. Don't think about it too hard, or you'll never sleep a wink at night again. Don't worry about me and these green eyes. Mama, just know that I love you, and I'll see you when you get here. I've thought about these lines quite a bit, and I don't really know what this is referring to, but from what I think, and from I saw someone also saying this on the Genius page as well, and I have it open right now. I think she's talking to her dad and her mom in this, and she's in the afterlife, and she's found her father in the afterlife as well. She's made it real far, you know, she's lived, in her eyes, a fulfilling life with her lover. And I never blamed you for loving me the way that you did. So she's saying that earlier on she forgave her father, and she's saying that she never blamed him for the way that he loved her, which is really, really sad. And I also like wondered as well, like, where are they? Are they in hell? Are they in heaven? Or are they just like in sort of like limbo purgatory where she happened to find him? And then the last couple of lines, you know, don't think about it too hard, or you'll never sleep a wink at night again. I think this is referring to her mother, who still believes that Ethel Cain is alive somewhere and that she'll come back to her. And she's telling her to not worry, or else she won't be able to sleep properly. Not to worry about her. And this makes me so sad. But she just tells her mom that she loves her, and that she'll see her mom when her mom eventually dies. And that's when she's gonna see her again. And that wraps up Preacher's Daughter, the first album in the Ethel Cain cinematic universe. Now, like I said before, I absolutely adore this album. I think this album is a masterpiece. For being someone's debut album, it's absolutely amazing how we've created the storyline of this character, and how each song has its own meaning, how it follows each part of the character, how it deals with this generational trauma, this idea of religion, and as well as this idea of like a love that shouldn't happen, and all these other themes as well. Like, wow, it's just absolutely amazing. I love this album. Now, like I said at the very beginning, this album is just one of the albums that Ethel Cain is going to make regarding these three women, the Preacher's Daughter, Preacher's Wife, and then Preacher's Mother. I believe, if I'm not wrong, Preacher's Wife is up next, and Ethel Cain is also working on a book for the story as well, and I'm so excited for that, because you guys know I'm a book girly. I love books, and I'm waiting for that. And I believe there's also movies as well, but that I've heard a little bit less about, so we'll see. Another reason why I love this album so much is because the way it deals with religious themes is so horrifically beautiful, and religious horror is something that I've always been completely fascinated with. Maybe it's because I grew up religious myself, but it's a topic that I really adore, and it's a topic that I write about quite a bit in my own works too. But this does bring us to the end of our video, and I just want to say thank you guys so much for sticking with me through this super long video. I think this is going to be one of my longest videos yet, because we went over so many different songs within one video, but I think long videos is kind of my thing. I don't really think I can escape it. Once again, thank you guys so much for sticking with me throughout this video. I'm very happy to be semi-healthy and recording again, and I'm hoping I can push out more content. Yeah, I'll see you guys all in the next video, and thanks again. Bye.